Hill City residents, neighbors, and friends. This is Tawana, and I bring you greetings on behalf of Lynchburg Sees Us. This week, you are in for a real treat. We have two sisters right out of Danville, Virginia, who have committed to serving the next generation in public education, and they're here to remind us that Black mental health matters. And all I can say is yes and amen. It truly does. So if you are a mover and shaker, a stakeholder, a parent, a teacher, a counselor, just someone who cares, please, please, please pull up a seat to the table, grab a notebook, an ink pen, and maybe even your favorite mug with some coffee or tea, because I'm telling you, this is a deep conversation, but it's so relevant and necessary. So I thank you in advance for taking the time to tune in and see it through to the very end. Let the conversation begin.
Welcome back to Lynchburg Sees Us. I'm Olivia, and today I'm here with two of my friends, Tonyette White and Shontell White.
Hi.
We're going to talk about the topic of Black mental health today. So I'm going to go on ahead and let them introduce themselves. You can go on ahead and start.
Okay, cool. Hey, I am Tonyette White, and I'm living here in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I work as a school counselor. And I've been here for the last 3 years, and it's been a cool experience. And
Yeah, and I'm Shontell White, and I live in Woodbridge, Virginia. I am a school counselor at a high school in that area. I am Tonyette's sister, so I'm just visiting her today. So yes, I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Olivia.
Yes, thank y'all both for showing up. I'm super excited for today. So today, if you guys haven't already noticed, some of you may follow us on Facebook. These amazing shirts that we're all wearing are designed by these two ladies. So we are centering the topic right now on Black mental health. So you guys, exactly what started this movement? Like, what made you guys inspired to want to do this movement?
Yes. You can start.
I can start.
Follow.
Yeah, so we have we've had a lot of stuff going on this summer, and with the pandemic and a lot of the racial injustices towards Black men and women, we had family deaths, friend deaths, and we were just trying to figure out how to cope. Like we were going, it was just a lot, and we also are just super passionate about this topic just in general. We both have had to deal with our own mental health things, and so this summer we decided to create the shirts as a way to kind of cope.
Do you want me to get into the history, or do you want me to
You
get
go
into...
for it, girl.
Okay.
You just go with the flow.
No, I just feel like, this fight did not start in 2020, right?
Yep.
So I think if we look to the 6 or 7 months that have already happened in 2020 for answers,
Yep.
then we will not find an answer. And so I think, we actually had a chance to post on one of Tonyette's friends' Instagrams
today
earlier. She's doing like a
share the mic with Black
share the
women,
mic type of thing.
Shop at Darling, yeah.
And the post that I shared on that page, just like slavery, slavery, segregation, de facto, de jure, implicit bias, police brutality. Like, where do you want to start? And then also all of that, and you talk about more Black women more specifically. We can talk about the intersectionality of our identities, the disadvantaged identities, and then you layer that with all of the other things that we already have to deal with, just being human, like paying bills, taking care of children, trying to, just all of the life complexities that we already deal with. And you put all the layers of having to deal with all of the things that we've had to deal with for generations, simply because we were born Black in this country. We didn't do anything.
Sure. And we have to, as Black people in general, we have to filter so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just always these different layers. And I was telling Shontell, I felt some type of way when I was at Target the other day, going up to the customer service line with my mask on, and for fear that somebody would stop me and think that I was going to steal something. And it's no, I'm not stealing. I just want to go to the customer service line. Just all of these things we always have to filter in our minds. Or when I drive and I take a long drive, I need to take my license out because I don't want to have to put it in my bag, and then for fear that somebody thinks I'm going to pull out a gun when I'm driving, and I literally have to put my license on the dashboard or put it on the side. And so those are things that
there's so many pressures and scenarios that we have to play out in our head, but then we can't live freely, to some extent, because we're always trying to process what we can do in order to not be perceived as a threat to others accidentally. And I think that and like having to navigate life through that lens is traumatic, and that's a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Traumatic. And
It's a
having
lot.
to do that every single day, and having your generations have. Our grandma is what, almost 90,
99.
99?
Yeah.
She's
98.
like it's only like a few generations from slavery, like a whole, what you call it, a whole.
So Michelle Higgins, if you don't know Michelle Higgins
from
is
a truth table.
Yeah, so she is.
Olivia knows her.
She's a mental health advocate, social justice advocate, and she's also like is she a minister?
She's a minister.
She's a
as
minister.
well, yeah.
So she is in the faith space,
Love it.
right? But is also
She's in
kind
St.
of
Louis.
right.
Yeah.
But she's also talking about these really difficult topics in that space, right? Which sometimes is not accepted or welcomed.
Right.
And so, right. So she's doing a lot of work, and she always says, segregation was one old lady ago. And I, and it's true. It's like, it was not that long ago. And I think I always say we want to be further along as a society than we actually are, and we can look to our very recent family members who are, just a few years older than us, a few generations older than us, who've experienced these things.
Yeah.
We always talk to our family so we're from Danville, Virginia, and so Danville is about an hour south from Lynchburg,
Yep.
and
It's the last capital of the
it's the last capital of the Confederacy. And so so Tanya was like, do you consider that South? And I was like, do you consider the last capital of the Confederacy South? Yes. So I mean, and I think that's a big part of a lot of folks' identity in that area. And so that's just kind of how my family grew up, and just what they had to navigate. And that's a big deal now in 2020. Last capital of the Confederacy, Confederate flags flying everywhere.
We're gonna use our land and put up our Confederate flags.
Yes,
and so,
that's a huge deal now. 50 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, when my family was growing up, my mom and my dad were growing up, that was a huge deal. And so just even having those conversations with them, and you can see how they never took the time to deal with that, just.
And even grandma said she feels like she was living back when she was growing up. Like, she had made that comment, like, back when there was a whole lot of outbreak from like the Confederate flags.
Yeah.
That was,
She compared living now to when she was living in like the early 1920s. So
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, thank y'all for sharing that, because I don't know who the viewers are going to be, but people don't always have these conversations to know. We're always kind of like our own perspective of things, like, oh no, it can't be that bad. But until you sit down with somebody and actually hear the stories and understand what's going on, you won't comprehend that. So I can resonate so much with y'all, because I know a lot of times me and Tonyette will talk about just like the faith, we'll talk about just trauma, just all of that in general. So in regards to Black mental health mattering, can you guys talk to us a little bit more about explaining mental health to people, because people may have never even really thought about that, because I know when I start talking to my family about mental health, they either think you're crazy, you shouldn't have a counselor, no therapist, none of that. And what distinguishes Black mental health versus mental health?
You want to start?
I always think about like mental health as like a spectrum, right? And like there's one end of mental health, like you feel really good, like that's mental health. Feeling good is mental health, right? And feeling not so good is also mental health. And I think a lot of times we think about mental health, we kind of get up in arms because there's this stigma associated with mental health that like you're depressed or you're suicidal or like you're not well,
Or
and like
checked into a facility.
and that's like one part of it, right? That may be one part of it. But on the other end of the spectrum is like when you feel well, that's a sign that your mental health might be good, right? And so I think when you think about it that way, and a lot of times I even think about my own personal mental health, like, okay, where am I falling on the spectrum today? Am I feeling really great today because that's mental health? Or am I feeling like not so great today because that's also mental health? And so I think just like broadening our understanding and just like not getting up in arms when we think about mental health, or thinking that somebody's like criticizing you or challenging you or saying that you need help, even though you might, right? You might need help. But not getting up in arms about that, and just understanding that like it's a spectrum, and it's not just bad, it's also when you feel good too.
And I wanted to add on to that, like it's health, like just like we have our physical and our spiritual health, like it's mental is the same thing. Like it is a part. We are made of different parts, and as a person, and I always tell my kids, you don't want to just have like a good social or physical health, you want to also make sure that you're mentally healthy. And so it's just like we take care of our physical health, we eat well, we exercise. This is also a part of it, but a lot of times we don't know how to deal with it, because a lot of our mental health, a lot of like our mental psyche is unconscious, because we learn from a young age. Oh, we do these things, we learn these schemes, we learn shortcuts in the ways to process information, because we can't take up all that information, you know. And so when it's an overload, then that's when that's an issue, and that's why we're talking about Black mental health, because we're always constantly in an overload of information. But I do try to explain it to my kids. It's just a part of health. Like, you don't want to be good in one area and then you bad in another area. You want to be whole, you know, holistic. And so, I definitely wanted to add that on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think more specifically, Black mental health, just talking about like the generational struggles that we've endured as a people, and the stereotypes, the expectations, the gendered expectations, the gendered norms about like what it means to be strong, like strong and Black, like strong Black woman, like just all of those stereotypes and expectations can really weigh on you and can make you feel like you don't have a place to show weakness, right? Or what I like to call it, vulnerability, or like, right, true transparency about how you feel. Your genuine self. So
and couple that with like young girls and young people, and I know me and Olivia, we've been reading this book, like there's another layer for young Black girls having to be grown, and so they have this other extra layer and Black boys not being able to share their emotions because they have to be strong. And so you, not only do we have like these generational layers, but then there's like these generational layers that created these and just layers and just labels that were created by our society to put young people in a box too. So now not only are they trying to navigate the trauma from their generations, they're also trying to figure out like what's going on now. And it's like Black women, Black girls, we couldn't be innocent, you know, like we gotta be, you know, or Black guys, they couldn't show their emotions, you know. And so
there's a lot of layers to it. There's so much, and I think you, like what you're talking about is like how, you know, just sexuality in our community or just in the world in general, especially in like when we talk about like faith, like it's deemed like bad, right? And I think we think about the place that we don't, you know, when we know that sexuality is normal, like exploring your sexuality is normal, but you know, a lot of folks don't get the opportunity to do that. More specifically, a lot of Black girls and boys don't get the opportunity to do that, you know.
Before they're deemed fast.
Or fast, or too grown, and so I think there's a lot of layers. We can talk about colorism. We can talk about we can talk about a whole lot, like, you know, reasons why Black mental health should matter. It does matter, and why we should understand that it matters. So
definitely.
I love it. These topics that they're talking about, like they say, are so deep. Just grab one of them and really look at them, because like they're listing off these things. It's so much deeper than just
today.
Thank you.
Take your time. It's the stuff that you can't do overnight. Like, I mean, I've been studying this stuff. Obviously, I'm a Black woman, so it's just in my life, you know. But like when I got to college, like I really started. I was like, I took a class with Julian Bond, and he was like one of the civil rights activists for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and like he was a walking piece of history. And I was just enamored. I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't learn this stuff in school, and it took me, you know, I went to college in 2009, and then I went to graduate school in 2015. It's taken, 10 plus years as a Black woman to really kind of come to terms with a lot of this stuff. And so you can't do it overnight, you know? And so just take one topic, and just like everything that we're learning, a trade, you know, our faith, you know, our health, like we're walking it out. It takes one step at a time. So,
Thank y'all. Also, because of this month being July, Minority Mental Health Month, can you guys talk about that? I didn't even know about it until y'all started talking about it. So,
yes, it is this month, and I love it because I think just, you know, mental health is important for all people, and I think just like there are stereotypes and stigmas associated with mental health, period, being Americans and living in this country, and I think it is right, and critical that we all of us, capital A-L-L, like, you know, and understand the importance of mental health, because it's still something that just as Americans, we don't really value as much as we should. And I think so, like, that's at the top, right, of the tier. And then just as we start to break it down, we start to understand, okay, Black folks, oh, look at all that y'all done endured generationally, and all that y'all have experienced, and all that y'all are experiencing right now. And I love that we are even charged with the responsibility to think about other minority groups or folks that aren't represented as much, and to think about our Native American brothers and sisters, to think about our Asian brothers and sisters, and
just model minority.
Yeah, that model minority expectation, and just think about, like, there's a lot, you know,
our Latinx brothers and sisters.
Oh yes,
they gotta. It's just
yeah. So as they are coming alongside us, I think it's very important that we come alongside them as well.
Yeah.
So just because I've seen a lot of signs. I was in DC. I went to the Black Lives Matter Square maybe a week or so ago, and I saw a sign, beautiful sign in like Japanese characters, and it said like Japanese people for Black lives. And I love that, and it was beautiful, and I was just like, yes, and like we can learn your history too, and understand like, you know, the battles and the struggles that you've endured, and why your mental health,
Japanese internment camps,
and why your mental health has probably been put on the back burner too. So I think, you know, there's a responsibility for all of us, and it's not or, it's and I, you know, and I think we have a lot to learn. So yeah.
Preach it, sis.
I love it. Also, so moving it a little bit, but let's talk, it's still in the same topic, but talking about social media. What are the pros and the cons with everything going on right now, and the best ways that you guys can explain that?
Oh,
well, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Trying not to get distracted. Good. Story of my life. So, oh my gosh, y'all, social media. It is just, I just think about the fact that just this generation in general, like, I've been using social media since middle school, 2001. This is when the AOL came out, or it was before the AOL Messenger and all of that stuff. And you're already thinking about like social media as kind of like, it's almost like we get addicted to it, or we are used to it as being a routine for ourselves. And so you're doing that constantly every single day. You're picking up your phones, you're looking at your laptops, you're looking at your screens. And in this season of my life, and I think also your life, we've had to really try to step back because of the messages. And this is something that we've been talking about as school counselors in general, secondary trauma from seeing what people are going through on the news or social media. I've been trying not to watch the videos. I have tried to limit myself just in general. And I think it is super important. You know, our brains are always in overload. We can't handle that much stuff in general. And I think this is why mental health matters. Black mental health matters. We have to consider like what can we hold for the day. And so I think that it is something that we really do need to be thinking about. Like, what are ways in which we can filter? And Shontell has also, she talked a little bit about this in her other session yesterday about what she's done, and I'll let you talk.
Yeah, no, I was just, the question was like, not just social media yesterday, but just like media in general, and I was just like flabbergasted at like how much the definition of media has changed over the years, and how like it used to be that we relied on like news media to tell us what was important and what we should care about, or right, exactly, to tell us like, okay, this is important, this was happening in the world. But now we literally have everybody's a news reporter at this point. And everybody got a platform. Everybody got something to say, and it's beautiful. I love that.
Or people are sharing things from like 5,000 years ago.
Right,
can
you check your sources? And it's a lot of responsibility though that folks have to make sure that you're sharing correct information, and that you're being factual and truthful and honest. Like, that's a lot of responsibility, because I always say that folks are very impressionable. Like, we work with youth, but adults are impressionable. We're all looking for something to identify with and to relate to, and you get a person that is like very naive and just looking for something to cling to or looking for something to identify with because maybe they lacked that all their life, and you share some crazy, you know, thing with them and they don't know how to process it, and then before you know it, like you've completely, you know, just created something for this person to identify with.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's a lot of responsibility that we all individually have, but I just don't know that we're all mature enough to handle that level of responsibility. So yeah.
And I'm even thinking about like a lot of the social media debates. I think you have to be in a good space. We talk about this all the time.
Yes.
We talk about this all the time. Just being in a space. I'm the type of person where I'm like, I ain't gonna even. I'll see you later. We ain't about to have this conversation on Facebook. You know, let's meet.
If you see me in person, then let me see if you let's see if you have some as much to say
as you do behind your
as
keyboard.
it took you
okay?
to draft that message to me.
Like,
You know. And I think just even understanding, like when we think about like Black mental health and just all that we have on our plate, I think self-awareness is a very important term. It's very important to understand like where you are and what you have on your plate and how much you can handle.
Are you at a 1 or are you at a 10?
Exactly.
We ask our kids all the time.
Because if I'm dealing with all of this, then do I have time to check you on social media? No. I'm gonna have to pray that you're gonna interact with a woke brother or sister somewhere along the line, and maybe they'll check you. You know what I'm saying?
I ain't gotta check
because I really don't have the energy, and I think I think that's important too. That just assessing where you are and how much you can bring to the table and how much you can offer. Because I be thinking before, thankfully. Probably back in 2014, I deleted a whole lot of ignorance off of all my social media. So this wave, I didn't see. I didn't have a lot of that.
You know, we've been going. This ain't just happened.
Yeah, no, this didn't just happen. So I was grateful. I didn't have not one white brother or sister on my social media platform. Not that I saw. I might have overlooked it. But, and that's because I was like, delete. I don't have time, not for my mental health, going through all of this. I really, truly don't. And so I didn't have, I'm grateful that I have a lot of allies in my corner because, and that's only because I got rid of a lot of people years ago. But I think it's very important just to process where you are, and for us all. And I always say that, well, none of us created this world. I think, and I think that that's very important because we all get on the defense, when we think about having to fix a system that we didn't create. And the reality of it is that we didn't do this. Like all you did was be born. Like you didn't
ask to be born.
You didn't ask to be white. I didn't ask to be black. You didn't ask to be Asian. I didn't ask to be none of the. You all you did was be born.
Yep.
And I think
and
all you did was be raised the way that you were raised, and I was raised the way that I was raised. And so
we have a responsibility.
It's like we didn't create it, but we have a responsibility as humans to understand where we are and where we want to be in the future.
Where we want to be.
Exactly. And if we want to create a more just world for our children, then it has to start here. You know what I mean? And for the next generation, it has to start here. And we all have to understand. I didn't create it. It's not me pointing the finger at you, white brother and sister. It's not. It's not me saying that it's your fault. It's the system, and it's the system. It's power. It's privilege, and understanding where you fall there, and understanding how we can all use maybe what power, what privilege we have as human beings. Because I don't have a whole lot. Right, I have some, and when I think about my privilege and spaces like in my counseling office at my school and what I can do in that space to make sure that the voices of my underrepresented students, like that's when I think about my power and privilege, I think specifically in that space, right? And so I would love for all of us to continue to do that, right?
All right, so being that we just talked about your students a little bit, how do you guys promote mental health with your high school students?
Yeah, I can go. Oh my gosh. So I think I mentioned this earlier. We don't have a lot of time with our kids. We both have over 300 kids on our caseload. Woo! And so
I have 400 kids on my
caseload. She got 400. I got 370.
Give me that 100. Let me tell you, I be feeling that 100.
She be feeling that 100. I know. I got 370.
Yeah,
so you got only 40. But you feel that 40. Yeah, you feel that 40.
You feel that 70.
30.
You feel that 70.
I feel that 70. Yeah. So unfortunately, we're not in the. We don't have the numbers or the staff from the budget to be able to accommodate less than 200-300 per counselor. And so we do a lot of brief solution focused therapy, meaning it's very, quick, we're gonna get a solution. But you might be doing brief solution focused therapy 5,000 times. I have kids that I see quite a bit. And so usually what happens is when I bring kids into my office, ask, are you on a 1? Are you on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? 1 being the lowest and 10 being the best you ever felt. And so we usually do a check-in before we chat about something. And usually what I do is I continue to build intentional relationships with students. So then that way I can speak into their lives a little bit more about counseling, or whether that's at our school or outside our building or other resources. We have support groups at Glass where we help students kind of navigate death, and that's been really great. As well, I do a lot of exercises with students, breathing. I have a lot of little fidget toys. I have a Zen garden that my sister got me. The kids
and they
love
to
that
rake
thing.
in the sand.
They're rake away your stress away.
It's like a Zen garden, has rocks and sand, and it's a little rake.
It's a little rake.
Really,
you can come in and just rake your stress away. I got Play-Doh. So you would think I was, I was in an elementary school with all the stuff I got, but the kids love it.
Good.
And also we do small groups, and so really giving young people a space. We actually had a group of mostly Black girls this year coming into a space to be able to have these conversations. So we talked a lot about this over the last year, and so I've been doing that. So yeah, those are the things that I've done. Really. And some things, like when we have a lot of trauma or a lot of students in crisis, I found myself bringing parents into the conversation where they've never had conversations about mental health, and Black boys and Black girls, and it's they've never had conversations about stress or suicidal ideation, and so I'm always having to facilitate those conversations, which it's tough, but it's amazing and it's powerful, because it's you guys can come in here and have that safe space with me. And so those are the things that I do. I'll let Shontell talk a little bit about what she does.
I think just everything that you just said, and then it takes time to know your students.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think once of those 400 students that I have, I would say about 50 of them are high needs. And I know those 50 of those. It takes time.
Yeah.
It took me a long time, and this is still my first year, so I'm still very much going into my second year. So I'm still learning, but it took time, to understand those. So when some people hear 400, it's no, I have to take care of those 400, but it's I got about 50 to 75 that's really up there on the spectrum of needs, right? And so I think knowing those students, building relationships with those students, I would say of those 50, 30 of them probably see me throughout the week, just coming in and out, and they might stay for 10 minutes to an hour to Miss White, I can't go back today. So you know what I mean? So it just so just knowing your students, have really investing in those students and building relationships with those students so that they know that you're there. And I think that's the biggest thing. I always tell my kids to be positive. I always tell my kids that, to know your 3 people in the building. Know your people who you can go to for some support. Yep. So, and it can't just be me, because what if I'm not available?
Yeah. What if I'm not available? Yeah.
So, and on top of that, just as a way to respond to all of the recent events that have occurred, all of the police violence, those Black people specifically, police brutality that has occurred over the last few months. Just as I was working with my department, we were just trying to figure out how we were going to respond and what we were going to do. Yeah. And let me just tell you that this was a new, innovative thing. This truly has never happened before, and it's unfortunate that that these spaces really haven't been created. And so as my department was working to decide how we were going to respond, we were also up against the school system, who really maybe did support what we were doing. We were let's do it, and then we can ask for forgiveness later if we need to. But we created some social justice groups, is what we call them, and we took the time to, well, not really took the time, but we decided that we were going to separate students, Black and white, and that was something that has never, that is I don't know about y'all, but in school systems, that's frowned upon. How can you do that? How can you, right? But we know that there are some conversations that need to be had specifically with Black black students and others that need to be had with white students, right? And specifically right now in this day and age. And so we called the group for white students allies, and the group for black students. And so we had some black counselors run the black student group, and we had white counselors who were also allies run the white student the group for allies, which actually end up being students that were not white but were non-black. And so that's kind of where we started, and we had a 4-week group, and we ran it on Zoom, and we were there every Monday. We talked about what it felt like to be black in America. We talked about what it felt like to be black at our specific school. We talked about what it felt like we talked about colorism. We talked about privilege. We just kind of delved into different topics that impact our community over a 4-week period. And so that just ended last week. And just after that, we recognize that there's a lot more work that we can continue to do. And again, just as counselors, black counselors of color, we're up against school systems that may not want to get involved with like sticky situations or like what they deem sticky. And I always am the first one to say this should not be a sticky conversation. Like, this should not fall under that category, just because
it should be a conversation we
welcome and we celebrate, right? And so, but the reality of it is, I think this kind of falls under a lot of taboo, political, in reality we're talking about people's lives and their identities. So that's what I wanted to add to what ways that I've responded this year as a school counselor. So
Thank you.
Thanks, sis.
In regards to self-care, can you guys explain to us about self-care and how does that personally look to you too?
So I talked about that a little bit earlier when I talked about the fact that like mental health is also a part of your health, and really getting to a place where you're holistic. And so self-care it means caring for yourself. It means caring for your physical, your spiritual, your mental self, and realizing that one can't go off the end of the spectrum, that it has to be a balance. And so that it means basically doing things that get you to a place where you can feel mostly yourself, and where you have a safe space when you feel like you're overwhelmed, or you feel like you are downtrodden, or you're tired, or you're sad. And so I can share a little bit about my own self-care. It's been a long journey. I have not always done self-care. I am a functional anxious person. I was a perfectionist growing up. I was like, let me go. And then all of a sudden your body, you're losing weight, your hair's falling out, you're tired, you break down. And I had like a few breakdowns, one in high school, several in college, and I had to get to a place where I'm like, Tony, you cannot function down here and up here all your life. You got to get to a place where you're right here. And over the last 3 years, I have felt the call and the heaviness to really care for myself, because I knew that I was working with students. It is unethical not to take care of yourself when you are working with other people. You can't show up and be well for other people if you're not taking care of yourself. Like, it's almost like you can't pour from an empty cup, like you can't give anything if your battery is on 0, and so a whole lot of life things have happened over the last few years, but I really took seriously showing up for myself, so that way I can show up for my kids and my family and my friends and the community as a whole. And so I took a lot of time for myself, self-reflection. I do a lot of journaling. I write. I am very much so, like, in the morning I scan my body. I'm like, where am I at? This morning I didn't feel that great, but I got it together. And really just being aware of that, deep breathing exercises. I do go to therapy, which has been a blessing, and I know that that's also kind of like, oh, but you're still school counselor. It's like, no, the counselor needs a counselor. So I love it. I love my counselor. She's amazing. We often talk about how she's hilarious. And so I do that. I step away from social media. In this season of my life, it's just been heavy things after heavy things after heavy things. So I've just been really just trying to do that. I have my own personal hike playlist that I listen to. I read the Bible, and so and I talk to friends, and I speak up more, because I haven't always, and so because I'm like, I can handle it on my own, but just speaking up more. And so those are the things that I've done. Meditating, and yeah, that's been great for me in this season of my life. To really focus on my breathing and not allow anxious thoughts to come in. And naming what might be has been powerful for me. A lot of times when you don't name it, you don't know what it is, so you can't work on it. And so that has been empowering. What I struggle with is not my struggle, is not my identity. You know, I might struggle with anxiety, but it's not my identity. So yeah, I've just felt really empowered. And me and my sister, we talked about the growth she's seen and my family has seen in me over the last 3 months, even in the midst of just hard things that have been going on. So yeah, that's my self-care story.
Yeah, and I think so. A lot of the things that you coping mechanisms and self-care strategies and techniques that you use, I also use. I won't add to that. I will add that like health and fitness and wellness is really important to me, and you know I think that is really important. And I think you don't have to go to a gym to work out, right? You can find ways in nature. I think COVID has challenged me to really step outside of that, the way of thinking, oh, I need a gym, I need a facility, I need somewhere to go in order to be active, when you can be active, you know, outside. So I think just thinking about that. But I do want to add that I struggle sometimes with the term self-care, because I think that over time it's been like received or deemed like this act of privilege that only certain people can attain, you know what I mean? And I think but really, and I think I don't like to call it self-care personally. I just like, I'm prioritizing myself. You know what I mean? Because I'm taking care of myself, because I feel like self-care has become a hashtag that is often hashtagged when you go to spas and when you go to places that are really expensive to go to, and it's like, no, like taking care of yourself can be sitting here drinking your water for the day, you know what I mean? Like that can be taking care of yourself, you know, or going on a walk, or it doesn't have to be an event that you plan, right, in order to take care of yourself. And so I personally struggle, because I'm like, this is not hashtag self-care. No, it's just like, just take care of yourself.
Because that's what you're supposed to be.
And prioritize yourself. And so like, so because it's not, I think it has been adopted as something that we think only privileged people who have finances to afford to do big things can do. Like I personally, I can't go on a cruise right now. None of us can go on a cruise right now, right? Or we can't. Right? So we got to think outside of that box and get creative to understand what we need.
Like at one point, I was getting my nails done every 2 weeks, and I was very challenged. You know, and it just made me realize, like, where am I putting my money in? Like, or just, you know, being able to live down here and walking, it's just been a blessing. So I've really had to think outside of the box, and I've become really creative and just spending time with myself. Like that's prioritizing myself. How do I feel today?
Self-awareness, and know your triggers. I always say, like, in order for a thing to be a trigger, that means it has to be connected to something from the past that you probably didn't work through all that well. So know your triggers, know the things that bother you, know your people, because sometimes it is just as simple as talking to a friend. That's all you need, right? But sometimes, right, if that's not enough, then maybe you need to seek help outside of that. Therapy, counseling,
do it.
You know, do it. Get help if you need it. I always say know your people, because a lot of times we sit with things and think we can deal with them on our own, and you know the reality of it is sometimes we just need an outside perspective. To
really break that, because sometimes we can get in our heads and it's like we think the same way over and over and over again. So I agree.
Thank y'all so much. I always learn so much from y'all. So as we're getting ready to close, do you guys have any books, resources, any websites, kind of like you were talking about, putting names to things so that people know where they can go, whether that is for counseling or whether that's for a book they need to read, whether you're talking to other people of color, whatever it is, you guys please share some resources.
I'll start with, like, podcasts have been a blessing for me in this season of my life. I think that there's a way, you know, I think just we talked about self-care or, you know, self-prioritization and going for a walk, like pop some headphones in, listen to a podcast. Therapy for Black Girls is a really great podcast. And there's also a website that's associated with Therapy for Black Girls that has a lot of resources. So I always say, like, Google. Like, if you don't know where to start, if it's overwhelming for you to, like, hear about a lot of resources and you don't really, maybe you don't have a notepad, I don't know, right? Google Black mental health. Google Black mental health for women. Google, like, Black mental health matters. Just Google those things and you'll see I've done it just because like if I'm going to point somebody to that, then I want to be able to do that, and I've done that. And once you Google Black Mental Health Matters, the first link is a list of 40 resources, right, to taking care of your Black mental health as your mental health as a Black person. Sure. So I would say start there. Well, that's a good resource. Alex L has another podcast. I think podcasts are an easy way that you can incorporate like better mental health practices into your life. Thinking about some websites and some books. You can go ahead while I'm processing.
Yeah, a lot of like major like social media, like Instagram has created a lot of guides for people, and so you can go onto Instagram. There was one actually about mental health for Black people, and that one was really good. And so just searching social media in general has been really helpful. I'm trying to think of
Sister Afaya is another online resource, and it's SISTR Afaya. I think it's AFFYA, and I may be pronouncing that wrong, but she is the founder of that. Has a team of social workers and counselors that create online spaces for Black girls and women throughout the year. And so that I think that's a really good resource, because that's a way that you can get involved virtually, right? And they maybe not go and get a physical counselor right now if that's not where you are right now, but there's ways for you to connect. So she has like sisters like circles, and she has like virtual groups that you can get connected to. I think there's actually one coming up on July 23rd. I'm gonna send you some stuff, and I don't know if there's a way to link it in the comment section.
What about
Taraji P. Henson has, what's that fun? It's a fun. I just was talking about it. Yes, Boris something. But Taraji P. Henson created a fund to be able to provide free counseling to Black people during this time.
You could also donate.
And you can donate to that. Yep. And that, I think right now is closed, but she's going to be looking into opening up a new phase so that she'll be able to support funding for more people.
Black Mental Health Alliance.
The Black Mental Health Alliance is another good resource. So that there's many sources. I'm thinking of all the books that I had actually wrote down yesterday that I can't think of right now, and that are on my phone, but the phone over there. Right.
Y'all can send these.
Yeah,
too.
I'm gonna send them to you.
Too.
I actually got an email that I'm gonna forward to you right after this. So
yeah. Thank y'all so much.
Yes, thank you.
Today has been amazing.
Yes.
I want to just close out just by like letting you guys know how important you guys are to this conversation, and we thank you guys that you could just join us today to talk about this.
Yes.
Tonyette, you've been such an inspiration in my life as a friend. Like a lot of the terms and just my growth, because I literally had my awakening just a few years ago as a Black woman, just understanding things. And I think that has helped me by just expanding my friend circles. And for sure, Tonyette came in and has just been an amazing person. And you've helped me with self-care. You've helped me with even like being in an interracial relationship and understanding the two things that we bring to the table. And so thank you as a friend. I have seen your growth. You're freaking amazing. Like, I want people to know more of who you are. Y'all please follow this lady when we put the links. And then Shontell, it has been like literally a privilege to even know you because of Tonyette. But like every time I'm around you, like I'm always like, oh my gosh, she's literally my woman crush every day. Like I love you. You are, and I'm not trying to put this pressure on you, but you are. When I say you're strong, and that means I really like. As a woman, as a Black woman, I have someone to look up to. Like when I see you, I'm like, wow, like I look up to her. The things that she says are so important.
Thank you.
I want people to know you too.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. No, you're so sweet. But I do want to say, because folks might be interested in these shirts.
Yes,
and
please.
we've gotten a lot of like feedback after this
we had
round.
over 100
orders. Got mine.
We sold about 100 shirts this go round, and I've been working on some new styles of the shirt. So I've been working on a new design. So hopefully at the end of this month we'll be ready to do another round of shirts.
Yeah.
And the whole point, right? The shirts are cool. It's an important message, and I always say it's an important message for Black folks because sometimes we don't really understand that. And it's important. It humanizes Blackness too for everybody else, right? It's like, oh dang, they do got mental health, So I think it's an important topic and cause conversation piece for everybody. But I will say the most important part of that is that a percentage of proceeds goes to an organization that is fighting the cause, and that is, you know, that's the most important part. And this go around, we picked a more national organization. We're looking forward to picking more local organizations down the line, so that we can really see the fruit of that in communities, because, you know, nationally, who knows, you know, where that money is being shared. We know this is going to, you know, towards a good cause, but we can't really see it specifically. So we're looking forward to doing that, and so donating to a more local organization, maybe here in Lynchburg, where I'm from, where I live in Northern Virginia, or where we're from in Danville. So we're looking forward to doing that. And so if that interests you, I would say follow us so that you can hear information about when that happens again. So,
Again, we'll put all that information on there. But again, thank you ladies so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Lynchburg sees you so much. Like we love you. So just by people seeing you today, they are just going to resonate with this. So again, we see you as Lynchburg sees us. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today.
Yes.